Welcome, everybody. As Carl said, we're really excited that you're here. We have a great presentation for you from Patrick Malone at Ingram Micro. Tell you a little bit about me. My name is Jay Bragman. I'm a salesperson for Integris. Integris is a managed service provider that has about 20 locations around the country. And we're really excited to be hosting this today. We like doing these because we like educating people. We like giving people an opportunity to learn. And we want to be respectful of your time today, too. We've got 1 hour. We've just taken 1 minute. And I'd like for Patrick to introduce himself and tell a little bit about Ingram Micro if you didn't know anything about it.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks again for taking the time to join us. My name is Patrick Malone, and I'm the Senior Solutions Development Executive for Ingram Micro. What that really means is that I focus on everything Microsoft Teams, whether that be the standard Teams Collaborate, Teams Forums, and using some of the advanced features within Teams, as well as extending that to Teams Telephony. So with that, think of me as an extension of the Integris team. It's really what we're here to do, and make sure that have all the resources that we can bring to the table. That includes things like updates and new features, which I'll get into later this afternoon. I did want to make sure that everybody had the entire slide deck. So after this presentation, you'll receive or have access to the entire slide deck. During this presentation, in the interest of time, I'll probably gloss over a few of the things, just when it comes to some of the more boring statistics and things that we can talk in depth about, but want to make sure we have enough time for answers at the end. And I know that we have a couple holes in the middle. And as Jay said and Carl alluded to, really want to make sure that we drive participation. We're here to answer any questions you may have. So want to use this time as effectively as possible for you guys, whatever that may be. Feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll get to them when time is appropriate. And in the meantime, I can start going through my presentation. Eddie, unless Eddie wanted to say hi, but
We're good. We're good.
We're okay there. Okay. Great. Go ahead.
All right.
So
we get a couple of polls in here, a couple of questions. The first one here is, how many of you here on this call right now use Microsoft Teams? I see some interest coming in. Keep answering. We're getting close. And by the way, if you're just coming into the call, we've got a poll running here on the right. Feel free to answer it when you get a chance.
Cool. Looks like we're hovering right there about that 84, 85%, 16% do not use Microsoft Teams. That's actually kind of surprising. I would have thought we would have crossed that 90 threshold pretty easily. So we can talk about a couple of different things as I go throughout this presentation. And how I'm going to start, there we go, we're getting up there a little bit. How I'd like to start is just kind of going over what hybrid work actually means, what that means to us, what that means to you, and what we're seeing in the marketplace in relations to hybrid work. You can't turn on the news without seeing who's going back to the office, who's not, what organizations are experiencing different scenarios that are causing them to look at hybrid work. So when we talk about hybrid work, what it really boils down to is thriving in the face of change and the resilience that it requires. I'm coming up on my year here at Ingram, and I thought I knew what hybrid really meant, and it's changed entirely to me. Does it mean that I work from home 2 days a week? Does it mean that I'm entirely from home? Does it mean that I work in a hybrid environment just when I'm traveling? And the important thing to take away about hybrid work is that it's all of the above. It's whatever makes sense. And what we're seeing in the industry is, most recently, we've had a tremendous amount of airline delays. Folks in my organization and across several others have been stuck in airports, been stuck in hotel. We've also seen some major layoffs in regards to major tech organizations, whether it be Dell, Microsoft, Zoom. Across the board, I have folks in different industries that are going through that change. In a lot of cases, some of those organizations are moving to a hybrid work environment to save costs and save those jobs. So like I said, I'm going to skip through some of these slides, but some of the more interesting statistics that we have in regards to hybrid work are really around Gen Z employees being able to work from home. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of folks move to a hybrid working environment, and many of them are still leveraging that and continuing to work from a hybrid environment from home 2, maybe 3 days, maybe every day of the week that they can. Seeing a lot of stuff in the market right now about Generation Z employees say that they're working from a new location. There's been several organizations that went through layoffs and immediately went back and hired, refilled those roles with folks throughout the country that were more cost effective. So there's a couple of trends that we're seeing in there. And one of those other statistics is 57% of folks are looking to make that change to an organization if they can work remotely. So some pretty powerful stuff in here. And I wanted to make sure that everybody had this slide deck at their fingertips when we're done here. For those of you who aren't using Teams, I'd be interested to know how you are collaborating today. If it's still in the office, if you're still meeting across the table with your clients and with your partners, because when we get into kind of that pseudo hybrid environment where we're not using soft Teams, a lot of folks are saying that they didn't enter into that meeting on the same footing, right? Those who joined the meeting may not have been able to see reactions, not being able to see those folks across the table. And one of the big drives that we're seeing, not only within the workspace today, but in cultural in general, is this drive for inclusivity. Regardless of who an employee might be or where they might be located, organizations are feeling real pressure to make sure that people are included. If you are working in a hybrid environment, I'd be anxious to know what that home environment looks like. Does it match the environment that you have in the office? I'm sitting at home right now staring at 24-inch monitors and professional grade audio. My home environment is more robust than anything I've ever had in the office. So I'd be interested to see some chat and feedback around that. So yeah, moving to a new location, a job change, to answer your question there, Tim, for originating and participating, Martin, we see that folks are able to have the same, if not better experience working in a hybrid environment. So all of the above there, the new locations, and whether it be a combination of maybe a Teams room or a collaborative and inclusive video environment in a conference room, as well as remote parties. So all of the above there, on a near daily basis, I'm in that hybrid environment where I'm joining that has a Teams room and I'm a remote participant in that room. So once again, just making sure that those environments are collaborative and inclusive is really a big driver. I'm only going to touch upon one of these statistics, but I think it's a powerful one. 43% of leaders say that relationship building is the greatest challenge in a hybrid or remote work environment. The very first conversation that I had with one of our senior leadership, one of our senior directors, his biggest question was, do I feel like I'm on an island? Do I feel like I'm included? Do I feel like I can reach out to my team members being a completely remote employee? And I thought it was really powerful because I didn't anticipate him asking that question, and was able to answer it confidently and say, yeah, I absolutely feel like I'm part of the team. I have folks like Eddie and the team that immediately supports me from a technical and collaboration standpoint. In fact, when I found myself stuck in Fargo, North Dakota, of all places, I felt more like a team member than I had up until that point. Freezing snow, rain delay, and I ended up there for a couple extra days. And people knew this and were willing to step up, make sure that I had the right resources. Although I didn't have my 2 screens, I still felt very much included in what was going on. And so I think that's top of mind for a lot of leaders out there is, if we do move to this hybrid work or maintain a hybrid work environment, what does that look like for my employees? How do I make sure that are tied in and feel like they're part of a team? So some of the basic fundamentals of Teams really boils down to these pieces, right? And the idea that we can work anytime from anywhere. And once again, some of my senior leadership has embraced this. One of our top executive has in his email signature, my work hours may not be your work hours. Do not feel necessary to respond immediately. And I think that's a huge message that will really embrace that culture here at Ingram. And what we get from that is the ability to simplify day-to-day tasks with things like Teams, right? The ability to integrate with Outlook and make Outlook an even more powerful tool by using things like tasks and meeting invites from the Teams client, using forms like forms, bookings, productivity. You're going to see a lot about this in the not so distant future, if you haven't already, is employee well-being and productivity. Once again, we're seeing Teams be responsible for a cultural shift. And with that, you'll see a lot about Viva. My days are usually pretty booked. And the first email I get is from an AI bot that says, hey, it looks like you have a pretty busy day. Have you scheduled focus time to catch up? Do you have meditation time to gather your thoughts? I rarely take that meditation time, but it's a handy reminder, and it's going to start being used more effectively by folks within the HR realm to do things like ongoing education, to do things like employee inclusivity and things like that. So you're going to see this as a way to connect people and drive cultural change within organizations. One of the big things that Eddie always talks about is the security piece. With the M365 and Microsoft Teams is very secure. For those of you who don't know, I always like to bring it up for just a second that most folks, even if the company isn't subsidizing a cell phone or a smart device there, Teams is partitioned on those mobile devices. So I can't go and copy and paste from certain applications. I can't, for instance, go into my OneNote and copy certain things across. I can't take things from personal or from a Teams chat and push them into personal chat. So there's some serious security concerns there that we can address. I mentioned work anytime from anywhere on any device. And that's one of the most powerful things I think about Teams is regardless if you're on a desk phone or a desktop or a mobile device or a tablet or even the web browser, it's the same interface for Teams. It looks the same, the login's the same, the credentials are the same, everything comes across. So once again, that access to desktops and applications from any device, it is a pretty powerful tool. So I'll take a breath and I'll let Jay say hello. And if there's anything on these past few slides that you'd like to draw attention to, please do so, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. It just came to mind as we look at this. Obviously, the connectivity of having people work from home is very important. They want to feel included. They want to feel like they're making a difference. They want to feel productive. I think one of the other things that came to mind that Teams could also be used for, there's some people who have decided to move to other places and they're not even near the office where they're really connected. What kind of things, how can Teams help people with that culture? Maybe during the pandemic, remember some people had happy hours that were all virtual. Seeing any move to that, especially with so many people working almost all from home instead of more hybrid, a few days a week at the office?
I certainly have. I know that a lot of our partners and end users are doing the same thing. We've kind of gotten away from the happy hours and the overwhelming drive for those kind of activities because people were used to Friday afternoon, we go out for a happy hour. We don't see as much of that, but what we do see is folks working around their own schedules. As I kind of alluded to with our executive director and one of my leaders, they're okay with, as long as the work's getting done. If I need to take 2 hours to go to a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day, that's completely acceptable. So it's that cultural change where, as you mentioned, during the pandemic, we saw, and I'll get to this in a second, but we saw a lot of folks hit that panic button and go with a Zoom or Ring Central or both. And meanwhile, they had Microsoft Teams sitting in the background that they were already paid for. So what we're seeing a lot now is kind of a consolidation of different platforms that during the pandemic, it may have been like an, oh no, we need this, we need that. And now that we're getting into this kind of do more with less conversation, we're taking a look at how do we right size things for our end users? Because in a lot of cases, folks are spending way too much for what they're getting. So yeah, I'd say we're getting into that. We saw that 86%, 84% of the folks that were on the poll said that they're using Teams today. We're getting into those conversations of how do we use Teams more? How do we use more effectively? How do we start to wrap in some of the collaboration? How do we organize team sites so that they become a repository of important documents? How do we use collaborative documents so that when I'm working on a PowerPoint for like today, we were able to go in and make changes independently of one another, make recommendations and see those edits and why those edits were made. Things like that are pretty darn important and helpful during the course of any business day.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So just a little different use. I think we're getting into like the Teams 2.0 to answer that question in a sentence. I'm going to be brief here, but oftentimes business leaders wonder, are folks working in a hybrid environment? Are people working from home as productive as they would be in the office? And some of the statistics that are out there actually say that they're more productive. A great one is, what do I do with commute time? There's one that was just published that said that most folks that are no longer commuting are taking 70% of that time that they used to spend commuting and putting it into work time. And I think that's pretty cool. There's some little tips and tricks that I've picked up from my peers, Eddie and Joey in particular. One of the things on here is the lack of follow through after a meeting. And the habit is to put back to back meetings. And I think that was something that I kind of struggled with as my calendar started to fill up and I got into a role. And what I started doing is, in Outlook, you can set it up so that it doesn't book the entire hour. It books 50 minutes or 55 minutes for that. And you still get the 5-minute warning towards the end of the meeting that says you have 5 minutes remaining. And it kind of just keeps things on task. And when we do wrap up that 10 minutes early, it gives me time to make notes, save notes, and prepare for that next meeting. Another one that I get a lot is distractions. And distractions is kind of a funny one because it's going to happen, right? It never fails that if I order something from Amazon, it shows up in the middle of an important meeting and dog goes nuts. One of the things that I usually do, we're unable to do it today, but I've chosen not to blur my background, and people are becoming more comfortable with that. One of our sales leaders has said that back in the day, it used to be that if you were invited over to a client's house for dinner or even a golf outing, if you were invited into their home, that you knew you kind of had that relationship made. And that's why I choose not to blur my background, is so you can see that, there's a puppy walking around, that you can see my Colorado flag in the background. And it's almost like I'm inviting you into my home. And it's a great conversation starter. It's something that people are comfortable with. Or if you work with a guy that has a Simpsons background, lets you know that he's a huge Simpsons fan and everything under the sun. So you can use it as a tool for a conversation started and worry less about the distractions and more about the productivity and inclusion, which I think is a pretty cool thing. Interesting. We're going to table that one there, Timothy, with the connectivity. But yeah, one of the big things about as an organization would planning on rolling out hybrid work is really coming out with a framework for it. And it boils down to people, places, processes, and coming up with plans that are company policies that not only revolve around the people that are inclusive, flexible, and supportive, but also make sure that folks have the right tools, right? They have dual monitors at home. Monitors are not an expensive item anymore. We can make that happen. The processes, are we using some of those features of Teams like bookings where we can have scheduled time? I'll speak a little bit about some of the new features that are coming out in Teams in regards to like virtual meetings so that you can schedule that in virtual appointments and get SMS text alerts. I have folks, when it first came out, I thought it would be largely used by doctor's office appointments, true appointments. But I have organizations that are using it for tech support and other things that it wasn't completely intended for, but are working great in practice. But I did want to make sure everybody had this slide. Jay, anything that you've seen as far as rolling it out? How do you make these things a company policy, or are they more de facto and just rolling them out and giving people the ability to be flexible?
That's a great question, Patrick. We've had clients do all types of things. Some people have said, hey, if you're going to work from home and you're not going to come in the office, just take your setup from the office and move it home. So they're moving those monitors home. Other people who are going to a hybrid model come in a couple of days a week. As you suggested, the prices have come down on these monitors and on the bridges to put them together, the connectors. They just allow them to buy those, or they've been bought from the office and then they just take them home and cook them up. So we've seen both.
Great. I've seen the same thing. But developing that framework is something that we can assist with, make sure that it's right. Because as I said with the slide number one, right, it's not that hybrid work's not the same for everybody, right? There's no playbook that fits every model. So we're happy to sit down and come up with that model for hybrid work and make sure that it's, collaborative and secure. I touched upon this, so we won't spend much time on it, but before, during, and after meetings, how are we being productive? Are we working on documents collaborative before or during a call. We're using chat pretty effectively here today with some questions and polls. All of these things are items that can be handled natively within Teams. Collaborative notes. It's kind of a fun thing. Eddie and I have a few standing calls, and it's almost a competition after the call to see who has the best notes and steal from each other and make sure that we're all on the same page. It's kind of a fun activity, honestly, because inevitably somebody has better notes than somebody else, but it could be a fun thing from that perspective. Meeting transcripts and recordings is huge as well. Oftentimes I find myself double booked, but need to be in both, or at least capture the content. One of the things with Teams is you have the ability to record and go back and catch the most important pieces of that meeting. And even with Teams Premium, you're going to start to see some AI interaction in there where it'll bookmark when I say, Jay, take this as an action item. It'll capture that and put it in the notes. And Jay can skip to that part of the meeting where he has a takeaway or a to-do. Going to leave this one in there for your reference, but we talked a little bit about some of the Viva, and then there's certainly an Azure aspect for security and as well as helping offload some of those services to the cloud. So once again, just moving to that takes those people, places, and processes and puts them into a framework. And we're happy to help set you up with that and what it means for your particular organization. I'm going to ask for Eddie's input here a little bit, but one of the challenges that we face, and once again, you can rarely turn on the news without finding somebody that hasn't, meeting sharing is a big one. Collaboration and file sharing. Are those files secure? Can I decide to leave an organization and take those files with me? Are we using different platforms for that? And is it something that I can collaborate with external parties and manageable collaborative documents across organizations? Talking about federation is kind of the big piece here. But see if Eddie has anything to add to the security portion of it.
So, hey guys,
I'll
just to give you a quick, I am on the cybersecurity side where Patrick is on the team side. So we do very similar roles, but handling two different products. And the one thing I can say about the security side is when you're looking at the premium SKUs from Microsoft, that the security side are enterprise grade security. Some of them are just a little bit scaled down due to the size that it needs to cover. So the same thing that you could use for, securing, tightening in and around the security, making sure that your data stays safe, is also used and paired across Teams and other platforms so that you're able to take and really hone in on making sure that you're able to take and go about doing your business from day to day while preserving the end user experience, right? You don't need to take and worry about all the different little settings and all the different stuff. That's why you go Integris. They're great at this piece of it, being able to take and set those things up so that you can enjoy just using Teams, just using your products, using the different programs that you guys are here to explore and take advantage of and grow your business with, while the security side and running behind the curtain, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, it all goes on behind the curtain. And the team from Integris can help you with that side of it. They keep you safe as you're making your journey through Microsoft and Teams and doing your business.
Great. Thank you, Eddie. So I did want to spend a little bit of time today talking about what's happening with the teams. As I mentioned earlier, we're kind of moving into that Teams 2.0 environment. And one of the big drivers of that happens to be Microsoft Teams and Teams telephony in particular. So I've spent a tremendous amount of time and research and money, a tremendous amount of money, to make the Teams telephony platform more robust. If you've taken a look at it in the past, I'd urge you to take another look at it today, because it's not the same Microsoft Teams voice that we had with Skype for Business or anything within the past months. It's changed tremendously as far as the features and capabilities of Teams voice. You'll see here that I like this slide because it's impossible to keep it updated, right? 250 million active monthly users. And what people don't capture about that 250 million users is those folks for the most part have the ability to collaborate inter-organizationally, right? So these aren't organizations that have it siloed or just using it internal. They're using it like we use it to collaborate with partners, with end users, with customers, with our customers in 181 markets, 53 languages. The next square is this 1 billion monthly calls. That's closer to 1.4 billion now. And all those calls, when they happen in a teams to teams environment, do not touch the PST and the publicly switched telephone network. So those calls are kind of like back in the day when you had cell to cell minutes, right? So they don't count against any of your telephony usage, which is once again kind of powerful. When we start talking about inter-organization, overall Microsoft Teams adoption is a big deal because it's going to reduce costs across the board, not only from a PSTN standpoint, but from a time and productivity standpoint. Jay, anything to weigh in here as far as how you've seen Teams mature over the past 18 months, 2 years?
Yeah, we've seen a lot more people who move from another VoIP solution or another cloud-based phone solution to Teams voice over the past, right in that period, 12 to 18 months. And partly it's because it is the point you made before. If you have 2 or 3 different platforms, it's 2 or 3 things that make it more complicated for your users and could make it more problematic if something goes wrong. So if you're comfortable with using Teams and you've been using it anyway, why not go to Teams Voice?
Absolutely. And we're going to get into some of the Teams Voice, just so, for those of you who haven't seen it, what it looks like. But really, this is more or less the hub for all things Microsoft teamwork. The theme of today's conversation was, how do we use this as a kind of pocket knife for working collaborative, and not only for those in the office, those are out of the office, and all the things that you would come to expect with Microsoft Teams, the chats, the meetings, the O365 and M365 suite wrapped into there. You're going to see Teams become more of the single pane of glass than ever before. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if you live in Outlook today, you're going to start moving a lot of your content, a lot of your correspondence to Microsoft Teams. And that's for a number of reasons. Microsoft Teams is natively back-ended by SharePoint. So instead of sending these PDFs, how many times have you had something that you really need to get in somebody's hand, a slide deck or a large PDF, and it's larger than your organization's capabilities to send? You can put that in Teams and share it instantly. You can put that in chat, share it instantly in most cases. If it's huge, we can create a link and shared access to that through a Teams channel. Then you're going to start seeing calls, as you see here in the left-hand side of that toolbar, that are little phone. And once again, bringing in the Teams phone experience into that collaborative window is going to look very similar to any soft phone that you've used before. The neat thing is it's now within Teams. So instead of having a Ring Central open, Jabber, any number of other clients that you have to bounce between, this all resides within the Teams client, which is really nice. I get a lot of questions on Teams licensing, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to keep going through here, but maybe we deleted that. But the people view with Teams as your phone, you get all the same features that you'd be used to for a dial pad, a menu. You can switch the outbound caller ID. So if you're calling from different numbers, you have that ability. Once again, this looks identical within any Teams client. So whether it be a desk phone or whether it be a mobile device, tablet, or even a web browser, this functionality is exactly the same. One of the nice things here is that it transcribes all of my voicemails. So when you get a voicemail in here, you'll be able to see and read that voicemail. So you have that visual voicemail aspect that back in the day was a licensed feature, is now something that's kind of a native right, is what we consider it. Building out your own Teams profile to include speed dials and frequently used numbers could be done in a number of different ways, but you have that always available dial pad with an overlay of your favorites, your recents, your voicemail, and makes it a lot more tangible to use from a Teams perspective. Same thing with call history, the call details, how long was the call, the transcribed voicemail, all of that is within that client. I get a lot of questions about the Teams licensing, and this is one of the big attractions to why people are moving to Teams Voice. Teams Voice is really comprised of 2 different components, the Teams phone and the Teams calling plan. So it does not require VoIP. So you have a couple of options. You can, when it comes to dialing, you can use direct routing and a PSTN resource like you used today. whether that be level 3 or Cox or any number of others. You can continue to do so. We only see that really in the sense that because the pricing is so competitive, the only time we see that is if you'd recently entered into a 3 or a 5-year contract with a service provider, need to maintain that because of contract issues. But essentially, with these two components, you have Teams Voice or Teams Phone, which enables all of the cloud phone systems. So all your whole transfer of the dial pad, call park, the call routing and call queues, auto attendance, all that is included with the base license. And then the calling plan can be separate. You'll see in the next slide, those are often bundled into a Teams Voice with calling plan. And $15 a user is pretty darn attractive. There's not going to be much out there that can touch it from a price perspective. And with that, you receive 3,000 minutes per user. And those minutes are aggregated, they're pooled. So all of a sudden you have 10 users, you have 30,000 minutes. You have 100, you have 300,000 minutes. And that's a lot of minutes. I have yet to see that, have somebody go over that. There is an overage plan and there is international plans that we can add to that. But from a cost perspective, if you're already using Teams today, in most cases, it makes complete sense to roll that out to your users as well. And you can port any number that you have today and move that over to Teams. And then once again, if you ever looked at a telco plan, how Rosetta Stone doesn't have a program or Duolingo have a program for looking at telco bills beyond me, because they're never the same. They're 15 pages long and there's a lot of complexity to it. Teams Phone with calling plan removes a lot of that by bundling those minutes, but in addition, bundles in all the taxes, usage fees, surcharges for 911, soon to be 811. So all of those are included with the Teams Phone with calling plan. Jay, anything to add to that? I'll give you a moment to speak while I take a drink here.
No, very interesting. We do have some questions from this, and I know you want to get to those, but I'm going to let you go ahead and get back to your slides, and then we can answer those questions at the end.
Yep, I'm almost wrapped, so I want to give us enough time to answer those questions because they keep coming in. So absolutely. So we can cover this more in depth, but it makes a lot of sense for a lot of folks. Federated calls is what I was talking about earlier. When you see those peer-to-peer calls, those never touch those $15 or those 3,000 minutes. They are completely free. And like I said, the kind of easiest thing to think of it is back in the day when we had cell-to-cell minutes. And so any time that you make a call to another Teams user, that is a pure Teams-to-Teams call, never leaves the cloud at no additional cost whatsoever. Already hit upon that. Here's something kind of interesting, and it'll probably be one of my last slides. This was published back in November, and that Microsoft has overtaken. It's been a gradual process, but every time one of these is published, whether it be from Forrester or Gartner, Microsoft is edging out the competition. And it's to the point where I would say that you're going to start to see some of these combined, if not altogether, go away down here in the lower quadrant. You're gonna see some of those go away probably, and some of the ones that are seen as competitors like Ring Central 8x8. I'd be really surprised if you didn't see some kind of mergers going on there in the not so distant future. With that, when you get this deck, I do want to make everybody aware of Microsoft Teams Premium brings in an AI component to the Teams suite. It doesn't replace anything. It's strictly an add-on, but there's things in there like watermarking for security purposes that when you're presenting maybe financial documents, you want to have it act as a deterrent for people to screenshot that and publish on a private channel. Things like that are included in there. There's also a more robust translation and transcription. It can even do American Sign Language, which I think is a really cool thing. So the amount of stuff that they're pumping into Teams over the next, this is generally available right now. Teams Premium is generally available, but you're also going to start to see things like Teams Spaces, which includes control access. So you'll be able to see who's in the office based on key card swipes and things like that. So as we said in the beginning, Teams are really getting ready for that 2.0 investment and release, which I think is going to have some really cool stuff in there. And with that, we'll get ready for the Q&A. And I know that, Carl, you may have had another poll. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder there, but we can open it up, I believe.
Put that up. I've got it next, but yeah, sure. Let's do it now.
Okay.
So the question is, What would you like to hear about in the future from Integris? And we've included Microsoft Teams, Azure. Oh, it's on there twice for some reason. Microsoft 365. We'd like to have an idea of what you're interested in. And if you don't see an option there because we were limited and it's duplicated one, please post it in the chat. And beyond that, we'll get back to Q&A.
Yeah, the questions we had here at the top, Patrick, the first one that I believe a couple of people asked a couple in a row. So Tim asked, we've noticed that the use of video is interfered with connectivity. He said not a lot of people either. And I think you may mean that either not a lot of people are using video, which obviously that takes the person away, part of what we're doing today. So what do you say to that?
So there is a Teams readiness evaluation that I can send out that helps with really well documented network settings and things of that nature. Another thing, if these folks happen to be in rural areas, it's not uncommon that we can do kind of a dual control where they're joining the meeting via the web and use call control through their cellular provider. So if it's an ongoing issue with somebody, I have folks that are in rural locations that are using satellite that don't have the most robust internet connections to their home office. We have workarounds for that as well.
Great. Chi pointed out that there's some increased costs to have users work remote. I can see that too. Obviously, if you had enough people working remote and you didn't have your office, you would take away some of those costs. What do you say to that for people who are using Teams and say, hey, it's costing us more to work remotely?
I think there's a couple aspects to take a look at. One of them we kind of touched upon, right, is that during the pandemic, we hit the panic button. A lot of folks did, right? And we now have Zoom and we have Ring Central. We have these disparate applications that are all paid for, that are being, the meter's running. And we want to make sure we take a look at those first and foremost. And you're right, Chi, that when we talk about hardware, it is there is some upfront investment to make that home office as robust as the office environment. But another interesting thing that is coming up is seeing a lot more folks, even Ingram, we're moving to a hot desk or hoteling, whatever you want to refer to it, shared office environment, because there just are less people going in there. And there's something like 91% of all Series A commercial real estate is up for renewal or in 2024. And so you're going to see a lot of people right-sizing their physical office, and that cost is usually exponentially higher than a couple of monitors, right? Paying for real estate is a very expensive thing. And being able to right-size the office to maybe just having, it's a 25 user office, maybe we look at making it a 10 user office and do some hot desking and really kind of looking at how much are we paying for office space versus how much are we using that office space is a very common conversation. We have hundreds of folks in our Buffalo office, and that's the amount of folks that have a personalized desk when they go in is going to change drastically in the next 18 months.
Agree. I think a lot of companies are doing that. Next question. Tim had one about SharePoint versus OneDrive. I believe Jed, who's also on our team here at Integris, answered that. Tim, please let us know if what Jed posted did not answer your question. John pointed out, Patrick, he said, I may have missed this, but the dialing and voicemail for Teams seems to require VoIP. Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure what's meant by that. Yes, and by its nature would be a VoIP. You're going to have an IP. There's not like a digital option for that. That you would be a soft phone type user at the very least to have access to those features. But it wouldn't require necessarily a VoIP provider. You could still use a legacy PRI, SIP provider, however they want to deliver that. Most of the time, it makes more sense to port those numbers over to Microsoft Voice and have Microsoft have those numbers. You still own them. They're still your numbers. You can port them at will. But it's not strictly a VoIP solution in the respect that we can still tie in analog devices, paging, fax machines, all of that. I don't know if that gets at what you're asking there, John.
He said he currently has POTS lines. He said, can he keep the POTS lines or not?
Yes, you absolutely can. So you can keep those POTS lines. We put in an ATA, an analog telephone adapter, and you're good to go, especially if it's just a handful, or if those POTS lines are dedicated to things like fax machines or fire alarms
Security,
or
right?
elevator. Yeah, we'd like to see those stay, but there's no reason why we can't integrate with POTS lines.
Great. Katie asked, for a standard Teams meeting, can you provide a dial-in number like Zoom, or do you need to add this Teams voice to do so?
So that's a great question because it's changed over time. So it used to be a paid feature, and many folks are still paying for that. But for the past 9 months, maybe even a year, there is a $0 option that enables audio conferencing for a Teams meeting. And so what does that mean? It means when I go to my Outlook client and I create a new Teams meeting, instead of it just giving me the link to the Teams meeting, it'll also provide you with a Teams audio conferencing only number. And with that, the important thing to note is that it's not related to a Teams phone functionality or license. It is actually tied to an M365 or O365 license. So you have entitlements to that. And it's a $0, but it is per user. So if you have 50 users that plan to use that, you want to get 50 of those. It doesn't cost you anything for the number, nor does it cost you anything for the minutes. But it's absolutely possible.
Thanks. Another question from Karen. Can Teams host the voice portion of a number while a third-party messaging app hosts the SMS portion? Interesting question.
Great. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't see why you couldn't take the content and put it in that SMS portion of the third-party app, but it would be a manual process. I can't think of a way we'd get that to tie
There's
into
no
Teams.
API that would be already built for that.
No, I do not. And that's partially because Teams for a long time has had that SMS on the roadmap, and we're just starting to see it rolled out. Like in Teams Premium, you have that appointment reminder that can send an SMS text message. So it's starting to become a realization, and I just don't think they're writing any APIs because they want to own that too.
Correct. All right. Terry, I think, wants to know a little bit of the difference between Viva Learning and Viva Communities.
So it really comes down to an admin setting. So Viva Learning is more of the HR platform that would say, I need to take this compliance exam, and Teams Communities would be more of, it recognizes certain things that you're posting to other Teams channels and may be of interest to you. So it's more of a recommendations in the Teams community, whereas Teams Learning will start to link in, like per choice words, it'll start to link in LinkedIn and things like that. But you'll have other things that show up in there, like compliance, Workday, or whatever HR platform you're using as well.
Great. Maybe one that both you and Eddie can team up on. SAS. I'm most interested in how we use these things and what isn't being used so we can leverage the improvements, including security in Teams.
Great question. So as far as features that aren't used, I have some great training. They're more or less YouTube videos that go into things like Teams bookings and Teams forms. And Teams forms is a very simple thing to use and a very powerful thing to use. So is bookings, as far as scheduling appointments and different applications for different environments. So I can get that, and we could post that as part of our ultimate deliverable to you guys. But yeah, including security.
Sure.
Eddie, I'll let you speak.
One
to
of the
portion, sir.
biggest pieces that really fall under some compliance issues is taking in. So when you're setting up the security side of things, just like if you were in healthcare, right? You have to be very conscious of personal identifiable information, addresses, social security numbers, credit card numbers, patient numbers, things like that. When you take and you can set it up, so even if you're emailing somebody and you put in something and you go to send it, it'll flag it and block it. You can set up those same things. So even inter-department, you can't take and send that information across from one team's account to another. So if me and Pat were going back and forth, we're talking or whatever, I actually, personal story, actually got flagged for that back, I think it was like 2 Christmases ago. We were all pulling some money together to buy the boss a gift or something like that was going on. And I took and just said, hey guys, just put it on my card. Somebody else was going to buy it. And I said, then you guys can just Venmo me the money or whatever. and I just shot over my credit card number to them, and it flagged it, and it wouldn't allow me to take and actually send that message. And then of course I got a pop-up window that goes, hey, you shouldn't be taking and sending this information, blah, blah, blah. So you can take and you can set those things up, and it's really wise to do so that you're making sure that as you're trying to take and control the data, so you don't have to worry about data loss, that you're doing it and it goes across to all the different platforms. So there's no sneaking around the system. It's there for a reason, and you can have your IT teams and Integris put those types of blocks in place to keep everything safe and keep everybody in their swim lanes just for protection of that data. So if something happens, not worried about anybody's personal identifiable information getting out and being pushed to the web or whatever. So those types of blocks can be implemented across all the different platforms of Microsoft using the MSQs.
Thanks, Eddie. Cynthia asked a question, and Cynthia, I know I just got your information. We're going to have somebody reach out to you about that. She's said her company's considering Team Voice and getting rid of their phones and phone provider. We need to understand how Team Voice works. That could be a little deeper question. We got 7 minutes left. So, Cynthia, just feel rest assured someone will reach out to you directly. Let's go down. Let's see. All right. Katie was asking, okay, where do I find that option to turn on the $0 option to turn it on the number for Teams meeting?
It's probably easiest to have you folks at Integris do it. It's a $0 SKU through the cloud marketplace.
Great. Perfect. And then Karen asked, last question. We currently have Nextiva and use MyRepChat for messaging. Nextiva hosts the voice portion of the number, and MyRepChat hosts the SMS portion. So if you call the number, it rings through Nextiva, but if you text it, the text comes through to the MyRepChat app. So in Teams, that would all be together, correct?
Yeah, it's going to look like it is because Nextiva overlays the Teams channel plugin. So they do have a plugin, but that service is entirely handled by Nextiva, not Teams. So although it looks like it's in Teams, it's not.
Gotcha. Well, we got a few more minutes. We got 5 more minutes. Respecting everybody's time. Any other questions? Thank you for the questions, by the way. Very good questions. Some of them really were thoughtful. All of them were thoughtful, but some of them really, I think, tested Patrick and Eddie, which they enjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and some of them are great questions that I'm sure that more than one person had. So,
sure.
Yeah, I think that a lot of those are very common questions that we're happy to help with. And once again, if there's folks thinking about building out a modern work practice, a hybrid work practice, we're happy to sit down and do a very personalized engagement for those, because there really is no playbook that says this is how it's done for everybody.
Exactly. Carl, we'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Just so everybody knows that once we end this, we will be sending out a copy of the recording. It takes a little bit for it to process, but it shouldn't be too long. So make sure you keep watching your inbox. Otherwise, we'll get back to people that ask questions and need a little bit more of a explanation, and we'll go from there. So I want to thank everybody for participating today, and we'll see you again soon.